So as I was coming up with ideas for my next guide to do, I decided that I would have a little bit of fun with this guide and create one for the best sword fighter in the game. That's right, I decided to make a Mii Swordfighter guide. Now, Mii Swordfighter is by no means a good or necessarily viable character, but he is incredibly fun to play. Now, I've come up with 3 reasons why I think people should learn this character, and that is if 1, you love trolling people and making other players salty, 2, you're looking for a new low tier to play, and 3, you want to see how far your pure fundamentals can take you. So over the course of this guide, I will cover 5 key components about the character. I will start off by talking about his moveset, then I'll move into his neutral. After that, I will go into his combo game and his follow-ups. Following that, I'll go into the recovery, and then I will conclude by talking about his edge guarding. Mii Swordfighter is a very fundamental character, so players with solid fundamentals should be able to do well with him. With that out of the way, let's move on to the moveset. Before I get into the first move, which is jab, I just wanted to mention that I'll go ahead and throw up the frame data for each move as I begin to talk about it. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move on into jab. Mii Swordfighter's jab is very basic, it's just a 3-hit move, but you're going to get the most utility out of the first hit of jab. The first hit of jab can lead into things like grab, down tilt, and down smash. What I like to do is I usually like to do jab 1 into down tilt and then to grab. That works a lot of the times, and of course you want to get the grabs because that's where Mii Swordfighter gets a lot of his damage from. Next up we have dash attack. Dash attack, again, not an amazing move, but it is very situational. It can be used as a quick burst option to punish your opponents for pressing a button. So you basically just have to wait for your opponent to make a mistake or anticipate a landing or a rollback or something like that, and then you can dash attack them there. Mii Swordfighter's F-tilt is a pretty decent move. It's a little bit more disjointed than his jab would be, so you can use it to space a little bit better than you would be able to with jab. My favorite use for F-tilt is to follow a nair with an F-tilt, and that can usually cover a lot of options. Moving on to what I find is Mii Swordfighter's best grounded normal, which would be his up tilt. Now, up tilt is very good. It's a really good anti-air, and it also is a good combo starter. It leads into itself as well as up airs as the percents get a little bit higher. So this is just a great way to catch your opponents for making a mistake and get a lot of damage off your punishes. Now we have Mii Swordfighter's last tilt, which would be down tilt. Down tilt's a pretty decent move. It can combo into a few things at low percent. It can combo into itself. It can combo into grab, which is probably what I would consider the most useful technique for down tilt. It can also combo into a couple of aerials like nair and fair, but I'd say those are more situational, and I don't think you could get as much damage off of that. Down tilt is one of Mii Swordfighter's safer moves, as it has very little cooldown and it comes out pretty quickly. So you can throw this out in neutral a little bit more carefully than any of his other moves without having to worry about getting punished. So moving into the smash attacks section, first off I'm going to cover the F smash, which I think is a pretty good move actually. It's one of Mii Swordfighter's main killing options, as it has a lot of knockback growth, so opponents at high percents are just going to go straight into the blast zone. It's not the fastest smash attack in the world, so you're definitely going to have to think about how you're going to get this kill with an F smash. So this is where your baits are going to come in super handy. If you can bait your opponent into choosing an unsafe option and then punishing them with an F smash, you're going to be netting kills around 85 to 100% pretty consistently, and that's huge for a character with a lot of lackluster assets like Mii Swordfighter. For up smash, I like to use it in a similar way that you would use up tilt, which would be as an anti-air. Now, this is going to be pretty good to catch opponents who are choosing an unsafe landing option, and at higher percents it will net you some kills, so it can be a decent kill option, but not nearly as good as F smash or even up air. In terms of combo ability, there's not much for up smash. You can usually get an up smash after you land a few up tilts on an opponent, but other than that, you're not going to find too many uses for it. Moving on to Mii Swordfighter's final smash attack, and in my opinion his worst, which would be down smash. Now down smash has one hitbox in front of him and another behind. The last hitbox is a little bit stronger and deals more knockbacks, so this one you can sometimes use for killing, but it's not nearly as good as Mii Swordfighter's other killing options. And you can also use this move to cover rolls, but that's about it. So you're not going to be using this move too much. I don't use it too much, and I think you'll be fine if you don't use this move at all. So I'll go ahead and put all of Mii Swordfighter's throws into one section because they're pretty terrible. You don't get anything off of them for the most part. They do almost no damage, and the only one you're really going to be using is down throw. Down throw is going to be a good combo starter, so if anything, I would say this is his best throw, because it leads into much more damage than any of the other ones. Forward and back throw are going to be used to get people off stage, to put your opponent in a disadvantageous state to where you can try and edge guard them, which Mii Swordfighter does well at. But then up throw you're almost never going to use. It has very little utility. Sometimes you can go for cheesy kills on top platforms where you up throw somebody and up air them, but this is very situational and you're almost never going to want to use up throw over down throw or back throw or forward throw. Alright, moving on to an even more fun section, we have Mii Swordfighter's aerials. Now to start off, we are going to have Mii Swordfighter's nair. Now think of this nair as a significantly worse cloud nair. You can reverse aerial rush this nair and get a lot of mileage off of it. It's really good for crossing up shields and then following up with a forward tilt, and even if you get the hit confirm off of the nair, you can still lead into sometimes up tilt. I usually use forward tilt. This move can sometimes be used off stage for an edge guard, but it's not amazing. You could try using nair as an out of shield option, but since it doesn't come out until frame 11, it would almost be always better to use bear or some other option. Next up, we have Mii Swordfighter's Fair, and Fair is pretty good for stuffing out your opponent's approaches because it is a multi-hit move. It hits 3 times, so think of it sort of like a worse Ness forward air. And it can also, if you land with one of the first 2 hits, you can lead it into a down tilt or a grab and then start your bread and butter combos from there. Fair is also going to be used in your edge guarding game, which I will cover later, and you're going to see this is a common theme with Mii Swordfighter's aerials, is that they're almost all very useful for edge guarding. Back air is going to be Mii Swordfighter's quickest aerial, coming out on frame 8, but it only lasts for 2 frames, frames 8 and 9. So it's quick, but it has a decent amount of knockback on it, so at relatively high percents, you can net a lot of kills with this move. For instance, if your opponent is trying to jump back on stage, you can just follow them as they're falling down, and then as soon as they try and jump or air dodge, you can wait out the air dodge or read the jump and then back air them, and that should net you a kill. Since back air is Mii Swordfighter's quickest aerial, I also find that you can use it as an out of shield option pretty nicely, but of course since it doesn't have a hitbox on each side of him, it has to be a little bit more situational. But that's what comes with being a bad character. You don't really get the perks of having great out of shield options like higher tier characters would. Properly spaced bears can be safe on shield, so you can pressure people's shield with this move and then try and punish their out of shield options with something a little bit stronger to try and net you a little bit earlier of a kill. Now we're going to cover Mii Swordfighter's up air, which in my opinion is his best move overall. This move kills, it has combo potential, this is just an overall solid move. If you read a jump close to the top blast zone, you could start getting kills as early as 70 to 80%, depending on how much rage you have. This move is just pretty ridiculous, And this is going to be your main combo finisher for your down throw combos and then your up tilt combos. So this is just going to be a move with a lot of utility. You're going to want to be using this move a lot. This is going to be your bread and butter move. You can't juggle too well with this move, but that's just because Mii Swordfighter isn't that great of a character. But you certainly can. You certainly can juggle with this move. You just have to be very precise. You have to have some good reads on your opponent, know when they're going to jump away out of your combos, and then know when they're going to air dodge. And then you can juggle with this move. It's just going to be more difficult. So you're going to want to use this move a lot to cover landings on platforms and stuff like that. So for our last normal, we have down air. Now with down air, I'm going to be saving this for the edge guarding section for the most part because that's where it's most useful. But it does have a nice grounded hitbox on the last hit, so you can use this to catch people off surprise, and you can actually use it as a pretty decent cross-up move on people's shields. You just hit the down air onto their shield, land with the grounded hitbox, and then you can either F smash or forward tilt or even grab sometimes after the down air ends. And honestly, a lot of the times it catches people off guard that are unaware of that move. So like a lot of things, you're going to catch people off guard with matchup inexperience, and that's what makes playing this character so fun. Alright, now we are going into default Mii's atrocious specials. Now, starting off, we have Neutral B, which is Gale Strike. This is a pretty crappy projectile, has a ton of end lag on it. It's just, the hitbox only lasts for a very short amount of time, and then after that it's just a win box. You can use this for edge guarding, but it just really doesn't have a whole lot of utility. Sometimes you can throw it out on a ledge and try and bait get up options, but it's really not great for that. This isn't a super good move. Unfortunately, Mii Swordfighter doesn't have access to his other neutral specials, which would be a lot more usable than Gale Strike. Now for side B, we have Airborne Assault. For the most part, you're going to want to use this move in your recovery, which again I will save for the recovery section, but this move actually has a surprising amount of knockback growth, so you can net some early kills with this move, but they have to be hard reads and they're generally really hard to land. I don't have footage, but there was one time that I down threw somebody at 60, started charging up my side B, and actually killed them center stage on Smashville. So moves like this can be funny to kill with, but they're really only going to kill if you have a lot of rage. I think I was at 160 or something, so obviously the rage definitely helped with the killing, but it's just another option, especially if you're trying to play Mii Swordfighter as more of a troll character, then you can use this move a lot more than intended. Now for our up B, we have the Stone Scabbard. Now this is actually one of the worst up Bs I've seen in the game. You cannot cancel the downward strike, so sometimes if you're not close enough to the ledge, you're just not going to make it back. There's very little drift on this move, so if you're just a little bit out of range from the ledge, you're not going to make it back. It can be funny to edge guard with because of the spike hitbox on the downward strike, but other than that, this is just a pretty atrocious recovery move, and one of the reasons I think Mii Swordfighter could actually make a case for one of the worst recoveries in the game. Mii Swordfighter's down B, or his blade counter, actually isn't too terrible of a counter. It's most similar in frame data to Marth's and Lucina's, but like any counter, you're going to want to use it sparingly so that you don't run the risk of getting hard punished for it. But other than that, it's just a pretty basic counter. So that's going to do it for Mii Swordfighter's moveset. Now I will move on into the neutral discussion. Next up, we're going to have Mii Swordfighter's neutral. Now, in neutral, patience is going to be key. You're going to want to play a very bait and punish playstyle, so you're going to have to wait for your opponent to make a mistake, and then you're going to want to punish them off of that. Mii Swordfighter gets most of his damage from his grab combos, and combos that start off of an up tilt. So you're going to want to bait your opponent into choosing an unsafe option, and punish with either a grab or an up tilt to start your combo game, depending on whether or not they're in the air or the ground. And since Mii Swordfighter has very limited out of shield options, you're going to want to keep your opponent at a safe distance to where they are not pressuring you into your shield, and that way you won't have to rely on getting stuck on your shield and not being able to get out because of your terrible out of shield options. So instead, you're going to want to slowly work on gaining stage control so you can trap your opponent into the corner and pressure their shield and then punish their out of shield options with your own various normals. Now for the default Mii, you can try to use neutral B as somewhat of a zoning tool, but since it has a lot of in lag and is just an overall bad projectile, it is not very good at keeping your opponents out. You can also utilize down tilt as a safe poke in neutral because it comes out quickly and has very little in lag, like I was mentioning in the moveset section. And Mii Swordfighter has a plethora of anti-air options in the ways of his up tilt, up smash, forward air, up air. So you can usually bait out aerial approaches by throwing out these disjointed moves. Or, sorry, you can catch aerial approaches with these disjointed moves. So, like I was mentioning earlier, forward air can also be used to stuff out aerial approaches, and you can also sometimes catch taller characters like, Bowser, DK, just characters with bigger hurt boxes overall. You can catch those characters dashing in with a short hop forward air, and you can kind of use that to keep them away. So overall, your main game plan is going to be to play very patiently and just wait for your opponent to make a mistake and capitalize a lot off of it by going into Mii Swordfighter's bread and butter combos, which I'm going to talk about in the next section. One last thing I wanted to point out before I move on from this section is how important Mii Swordfighter's movement is when it comes to his neutral. You can use extended dash dancing and perfect pivots to get grabs more easily in neutral, and this is going to be huge for your gameplay as Mii Swordfighter gets so much off of his grab, like I've continued to reiterate throughout this guide, and getting grabs easier is going to be imperative to your gameplay. Alright, so next up we're going to have Mii Swordfighter's combo game. So starting off, we're going to keep the combo game simple. Your down throw is going to be your main combo starter, and the easiest and most damaging follow-up is going to be an up air. An easy way to get grabs is going to be to hit confirm with a down tilt and then immediately run up and dash grab and then start your grab combos from there. Now, your opponent can DI in or away to make getting the up air after the down throw a little bit harder, but you can always follow the DI and still get the up air punish. Sometimes you might want to go ahead and use forward air instead, just in case you're trying to keep your up air fresh for your killing purposes. One instance would be especially if you had a lot of rage and you're trying to go for much lower percent kills with the up air, so you can keep it fresh by using forward air. It's just a good mix-up in general. So another one of your main combo starters is going to be your up tilt. You can chain up tilts together at lower to mid percents and use either an up air or an up smash as the finisher. So now we're going to move on to the more fun combos, which are in my opinion the footstool combos. Now everybody likes a good footstool combo, they're always flashy, they're always fun, and Mii Swordfighter does have some, so this makes his combo game more interesting than characters that don't have footstool combos. So again, you're going to start off the combo with a down throw, and you're going to want to footstool your opponent immediately after. Now from zero, this doesn't work on every character, so a lot of times you're going to want to have that down tilt before, just so you can have a little bit of extra percent to make getting the footstool easier. So now after you footstool your opponent, you're going to want to back air them to lock, and then you can other than the back air, you can also use an up air, which could lead into a more vertical combo. You could do falling up air into any various falling up air combos. But if you go with the back air lock, you can re-grab your opponent and then go for another down throw up air combo if you decide to go for the lock instead of the falling up air. Speaking of which, I'm going to move into falling up air, which is another good combo starter. A falling up air can lead to more up tilts, more up airs, more fairs. This move essentially leads into anything that you can imagine. So you're just going to want to have fun with it and see what punish works best for whatever scenario you're in. And I think the good thing about Mii Swordfighter is he has a very creative combo game. Just like the character itself, there's so many different customization options with the various costumes and then obviously the moves, but since we're just talking about default, this is all we have. But, it's just a very creative combo game. You can kind of mix and match what you want to do after certain hit confirms, but for the most part, you're going to want to stick with your bread and butter down throw up air combos, and you can mix in the footstool combos occasionally to catch your opponent off guard, especially if your opponent has very little matchup knowledge against Mii Swordfighter. One of the worst areas of Mii Swordfighter's toolkit is his recovery options. In my opinion, Mii Swordfighter probably has a bottom 3 recovery because of how exploitable and limited his options are. Like with any character, but especially for Mii Swordfighter, you're going to want to save your jump for as long as possible because this will be the safest way to recover back to the stage without worrying about getting gimped. Now, his side B, or airborne assault, can allow you to recover from really great distances horizontally, but it is very easy to hit Mii Swordfighter out of, and if your opponent simply takes the hit, you will go into special fall and not be able to recover. This can cause you to get killed at very low percents, so I would recommend using this form of recovery sparingly and only when completely necessary to make it back to the stage. Say for instance you get hit way into the blast zone and you're not in a position where you can jump and up B back, so you're going to want to charge side B and get back on stage. Now his up B, the Stone Scabbard, is one of the worst up Bs in the game. This move has very little drift and you are unable to cancel the downward thrust in the same way that you'd be able to with Cloud. Think of this move basically as a much worse Cloud up B, but it does have a little bit nicer of a spike hitbox, so sometimes that can come in handy. Make sure you are able to consistently find the spacing where you can sweet spot the ledge by doing the upward thrust and not going into the downward thrust. Basically, you're going to want to be at a 90-degree angle below the stage, and this is going to be the safest way to recover. The one optimistic thing about Mii Swordfighter's recovery is that if people are unfamiliar with how to edgeguard him, or if they just get lazy and kind of mess up a little bit on their edgeguard, they can get caught by his recovery moves and end up dying because of them. If you can catch somebody with the first hit of the up B, the second hit is going to spike them, and if this character doesn't have a good recovery move, it can just kill them straight up, and sometimes you could even follow it up with a down air and kill them that way. Now, side B does have pretty decent knockback growth, so if your opponent is a higher percent and they don't edgeguard you properly and they get hit by the side B, they could end up dying before you do, or sometimes you're still able to drift back and grab the ledge and they'll end up hitting the blast zone. Now you can use this to your advantage and sometimes side B when they're not suspecting it to make recovering easier. It is important to always be cautious off stage because Mii Swordfighter has no way of making it back from a 45-degree angle away from the stage unless he still has his jump. So overall, anytime you're off stage, you're going to want to be very careful. Always try and think about saving your jump. You're just going to have to be thinking a lot about how you're going to recover. Think about how your opponent is trying to punish your various recovery options and then modify how you choose to recover based on that. A lot of times you can recover high with side B and just side B onto the stage, but if your opponent starts catching on to that, they're going to hard punish you for that. So that's when you're going to want to mix it up and go low and recover with up B. One last thing that I wanted to note about Mii Swordfighter's recovery is that on his ledge get up animation, he actually has an unusually long one compared to the rest of the cast. Only the other Miis and Palutena have the same frame, the ledge get up frame data. So sometimes this can catch your opponents off guard and their attacks or grabs will end up missing because they try and time it for a normal ledge get up. So that's just one other thing to keep in mind when choosing get up options from the ledge. Now the last section we are going to cover will be edge guarding, and this is one of my favorite parts about playing the character, especially if you're attempting to make people mad and rage quit. The most deadly edge guard and one of my favorite edge guards in the game is going to be down air into footstool for incredibly early kills. Now you're going to want to use this against opponents that lack hitboxes above their character model on their recovery moves, and you will end up killing people earlier than you'd be able to otherwise. However, be careful because if you aren't fast enough on the jump to get the footstool, you could end up getting footstooled yourself and dying instead. So basically think of using this move in the same way that Fox would be using his fair footstool. It's the exact same concept here. Now, fair, bair, and nair are also very useful for edge guarding, but not nearly as deadly as the down air footstool would be. Back air has the most kill potential out of these moves, but it stays out for the shortest amount of time, so you're mainly going to want to use this to follow your opponent until they either air dodge or jump, and then you can just follow them and either jump with them and back air them, or fall down until their air dodge ends and then back air them that way, and this should net you some good kills. It will at least put your opponent in a bad situation where you can then continue the edge guard. Fair and Nair are both going to be used in similar ways in that their intent is to push your opponent further off stage to continue the edge guard. These moves don't have the same raw kill power that back air does, but they should be used to keep pushing the opponent off stage until they're either no longer able to come back or you're able to close out the stock with any of the various aerials. Up air is also pretty useful in covering high recoveries. You can basically catch people trying to jump back onto the stage, and if they don't air dodge, you can just up air them immediately and they'll probably die off the top, starting around 80-90%, somewhere around there. And then if they do air dodge, you can just wait for the invincibility to finish, and you could either up air here or just fair them back off stage, and then they'll be without a jump, so they'll be in a very bad position. Lastly, I just wanted to go over Gale Strike a little bit, which is the neutral B. Now, this move isn't amazing off stage, but it can be thrown out just so the opponent has another projectile that they have to deal with while they're trying to recover. So, say they try and air dodge through the projectile, you can then go hit them further off stage, but due to the insane amount of end lag on this move, sometimes this is not possible because you're still stuck in the end lag of the move. So generally, you usually just want to throw this in as a mix-up. You can also use it to cover the ledge and then cover some different get-up options using that, because they'll have to think about dealing with that projectile as well. So that's just another mix-up that you can do. Edge guarding is probably Mii Swordfighter's strongest strength as a character, so you're definitely going to want to utilize getting your opponent off stage and killing them as soon as possible. Alright, that's going to do it for this guide. So I just wanted to close by saying that overall, obviously Mii Swordfighter is not the best character. He has a lot of exploitable attributes. His bad frame data and slow speed as a character really give him a lot of trouble, but the character is very fun to play as, so I would definitely recommend picking him up if you just want to have another fun character in your pocket, or you really want to troll people and just make people salty. So once again, thank you for watching. I really put a lot of time into this guide, so I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any feedback about things that I should improve in the comment section down below, and just once again, thank you so much for watching.